Welcome to Real Talk with Mark West, a podcast about owning your shit and playing through life.
I do what I want. If people would just accept that, we could get along. Come for me if you want to. I ain't scared. Shit, I bike in Chicago. I feel like I'm Neo in the Matrix, but I suck at it. I'm dodging right into the bullets, you know?
I'm your host, Mark West. Hello, everyone. Hello. Happy Tuesday, and welcome to Real Talk with Mark West. I don't know if you noticed, but there have been a few changes around here. I kind of got locked into old habits immediately after starting my podcast. Some people did not really respond very well to what I was doing, and I experienced some painfully unexpected changes that I was unconsciously blaming myself for. I was telling myself that it was the words I spoke on the show that brought about these issues, and every episode then turned into an anxiety-ridden challenge. I've been unpacking that for these past few weeks, and I see now how I've lost track. I've been healing and growing, and it's time for a rebranding. But it's closer to the true nature and purpose of this podcast and why I actually started it. I started this podcast because I have a voice and I have something to say, and I'm not going to let attempts to take that voice and this opportunity inform my podcast anymore. I'm no longer beating around the bush or apologizing for my opinions. From here on out, it's nothing but real talk. But before we do get started, I did want to introduce you to someone. It's the mouse in my pocket. Mouse and I share the same opinions, and Mouse agrees wholeheartedly with everything I have to say. So, if there's a time when I'm talking and you hear me say we and you don't think it applies to you, just tell yourself I'm talking to the mouse in my pocket. And if I say you and you don't think it has anything to do with you, you can tell yourself I'm talking to the mouse in my pocket. Not everybody's ready to hear what I have to say, and they're definitely not ready to hear it from someone who looks and acts like me. But what is that to me? One thing people who know me have always known about me, I keeps it real. I started my journey towards healing a year ago, but I started a journey towards quote-unquote finding myself sometime after college. I just finished acting in 2 national touring shows fresh out of school, and it was time to come back home and further pursue my acting career. Time to start auditioning for those roles that were most like me and to tell those stories that I most connected with. Only problem was, I didn't know what those were. I had just been existing and in a fog for the last, then, 22 years. Who is Mark? What do I want out of life, and what kind of person do I want to be? I was asking that at 22 because up until then, everyone had told me what I wanted. They defined it for me, and I seemingly had no choice. So I started a very long and painful journey towards finding myself, and it wasn't until last year that I realized I'd never get in touch with my true self until I'd healed from everything I'd ever done and everything that had ever happened to me. This time last year, I'd found myself standing in front of someone I completely did not recognize and completely did not like. Me. It wasn't necessarily self-hatred. I did not like the choices I was making and how I was taking my pain out on the world. It was actually my first step towards greater self-love. I said this before. My biggest fear when entering the lockdown was what would happen when I was forced to sit alone in a room with myself. I even mentioned the quote by Blaise Pascal. All of humanity's miseries derive from not being able to sit in a quiet room alone. That was the first thing that came to my mind when the shutdown happened. How did it go? It went terribly, and it's entirely my fault. I was allowing myself to be led by fear and anxiety, and I saw every obstacle as further proof that I was inadequate. Those thoughts filled me with a lot of self-doubt, self-hatred, and worst of all, shame. I don't know if there's anything a black male hates more than feeling ashamed. Of course, I didn't take any responsibility for these feelings. No, I I did the sane, normal, healthy thing. I projected them. I made other people responsible for my shame. I told them it was because of them that I felt this way about myself, sometimes in those exact words. Glendale, the neurotic and kleptomaniac Garanok Centaur in the Netflix animated show Centaur World, she said it best for me. Projecting our inability to control the unpredictable brutality of nature by answering the violence perpetrated on our psyches by externalizing violence onto other centaurs around us. Or in my case, people, if that's what you want to call them. I'd been on this journey to find myself, but I hadn't realized that I'd only lost myself in the first place because of past and present traumas that I hadn't dealt with. I needed to stop finding myself, and I needed to start healing myself, like ASAP. I was so blinded by rage and disconnected from my shame that I found myself in a real position where I was ready to take a life or lose my own. The choice was there, and by pure chance got interrupted. And that did not sit right with me. I had to take a long, hard look at myself. I have been beaten up by past and present traumas. I have been broken mentally and emotionally, and society is telling me to turn these feelings inwards, to suppress them, keep them secret, to numb them. Trauma causes stress, and stress causes illness and an unhappy life. The word trauma comes from a Greek word meaning unhealed wound. My trauma is not the event that happened to me, but how I responded to it, how it manifested in my body. It is not enough to know that I am hurting. I must also know what I need to heal and get back to who I was before the traumatic event. However big or small, any unexpected change can cause trauma, but we must be able to recognize when we are experiencing trauma, understand how it is manifesting, and know how to navigate that trauma so it doesn't get stuck in our bodies and start to inform how we live our lives. We must have the wisdom to know how to stabilize ourselves. Knowledge is not power. Wisdom is. Knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit, but wisdom is knowing not to put a tomato in a fruit salad. Wisdom is brought upon through knowledge and experience. We cannot claim to be wise if we are constantly trying to avoid a key part of the human experience. Life is hard and full of suffering. Do not seek to escape suffering. Seek clarity. Grow wise. We have what we need to weather life, and not just survive, but live. But only if we don't allow ourselves to be led by fear. Fear of our thoughts, fear of our pain, fear of ourselves. Because here's the tea. If you can't sit quietly with your thoughts, you can't be in charge of your own thinking. And in the world we live in, that's really scary. If you're not in charge, then who is? The journey I'm on is not just a healing journey, it's a mental revolution.
I am a revolutionary.
Creating myself. It was Pablo Picasso who said the first act of creation is an act of destruction, a breaking of the ground. In order to create new mindfulness habits, a new way of thinking, feeling, and responding to the world, it first starts with destroying something you used to do. Our era of toxic positivity says avoid things that make you uncomfortable and only chase that which feels good. Have another cocktail, get a mani-pedi, go for a massage. Now don't get me wrong, those things are great ways to pamper yourself, and sign me up for all three, but this idea that life should be pleasant and even and without hardship is nothing but emotional avoidance. Sidestepping pain instead of learning how to deal with it in a healthy way. And because of this, we live in a world full of emotional infants and spiritual giants who are pain-phobic and trampling through life. And the opportunity cost, among other things, is connection and vulnerability. Those things I said I was looking for when I started this podcast. But it also costs us emotional intelligence, critical thinking, and common sense, which makes connecting with people even more difficult. Trauma is 100% associated with rigidity. Even think about scar tissue on the body. Healing brings flexibility in thinking, feeling, and behaving. Is this really relevant? And does this apply to you? Am I just talking to the mouse in my pocket? I don't know. Only you can answer that. I would ask you this though. How do you define yourself? That's a major gateway into unhealed wounds. Nothing stirs up the ugly emotions of shame and anger faster than challenging someone's sense of identity, their sense of self. To that end, you already know, I ain't no bitch, so I ain't gonna leave you with all this talk without doing it myself. I told you I was gonna share my story about how I got my groove, and I'm not gonna lie, I've been very nervous about it. I've been afraid of what I'd be sharing and what I'd have to admit. I have always tried to present a very polished and put together version of myself, though I'm sure you've guessed by now that is the furthest from the truth. My identity has always been shrouded in mystery, first to myself, and then to everyone else around me, family, teachers, relationship partners, friends, co-workers. I didn't know who I was for so long because I had defined myself based off a singular characteristic, and it was the one thing I'd hated most about myself. It was a part of myself I wanted to keep secret and hide from the rest of the world. The part of myself I lied about and pretended didn't exist, and if anyone brought it up or it slipped, I'd immediately be filled with shame and a feeling of rejection. And because of that, I withdrew. I pulled away from the world. The early years of my life were marked by trauma and loss. Life was grand and beautiful and full of possibility, and suddenly it was temporary and fleeting, and there's no rhyme or reason as to how, why, who, or when. This loss touched every member of my family, and I can't honestly say we ever fully recovered from it. But it was around this time that I developed a stutter.
Have you ever had a dream that you want him to do you so much you could do anything?
I've had a stutter for most of my life, only it's not as cute and endearing as that kid. It's more like mixed with muscle spasms, contorted facial expressions, strange and irregular breathing, hot flashes, cold sweats, all to answer the simple question, what's your name? This tore at my self-esteem as a child, and it still does. People were very unkind. Kids and adults alike. People hear me now and listen to my podcast without understanding the mountains I had to climb just to be able to speak a smooth and continuous thought. To be able to speak at all. I was stuck with thoughts, ideas, and feelings that I was unable to express. In a sense, locked in my body. I was often considered mentally, socially, and cognitively inept because of it. I couldn't speak my thoughts and ideas, so people thought I had none. They thought I had nothing to offer. I became severely withdrawn, depressed, and shy because of it, but I did have an almost insatiable hunger for knowledge, and to this day, I love to learn. I would even go so far as to consider myself a very smart person. But underneath all that is years of me trying to combat how utterly stupid I feel whenever I stutter. I do everything to avoid it. People tend to immediately invalidate what you have to say if you can't say it fast and eloquently. So look at me now, fully overcompensating. Not yet fully healed. I'm working on that, though. But you can see how just one traumatic event, especially in childhood, can inform your thoughts, feelings, and decisions for the rest of your life. From career choices to education to vocal cadence, we can't sidestep pain and expect a normal, healthy life. I didn't speak a lot when I was younger. You can go back 5 years and find a less talkative, less social version of me. As I'm finding my voice and allowing myself time to put my thoughts together and put them into the space, I find that I can get excited and start to talk over people. A side effect of being talked over as a stuttering kid. I know where that habit comes from, an unhealed wound. It's going to be messy as I heal. I have to sift through all these feelings I've been avoiding for years. But wisdom says, heal the wound so I can stop letting this hurt child make my grown-up decisions. That's why I lean so hard every day into mindfulness. Mindfulness is an ability we all possess and can cultivate. Simply put, mindfulness is awareness without judgment or criticism. Deliberately paying attention, being fully aware of what's happening both inside you, in your body, heart, and mind, and outside of you, in your environment. Anything we bring our full attention to will begin to open up. and reveal worlds we never knew existed. Anything. I want to revisit last week's episode, the final episode of My Circus, My Monkeys. I had a different episode planned and recorded that I re-recorded and re-edited the Monday before it went out, crippled by the fear of being rejected for being vulnerable and honest. I'm destroying that belief in me and want to present what I'd planned. I told you last week, I'm always okay, because through mindful awareness, pain becomes a natural part of life and an opportunity for growth. I've been dealing with a lot lately. I've been having some struggle. Toxic and invalidating relationships, saboteurs, invalidating work life. It's been eating at my self-esteem. And because of this, I've felt not okay. And I've told people that I'm not okay as an excuse or a sort of apology for my struggles. Everyone says be mindful of how your actions make other people feel, as if my issues somehow invalidate other people. Like that person who says, promise me you won't get mad. I can't, but I can promise you I won't respond in anger. The way I feel about myself has nothing to do with outside events, and everything to do with me. We're so hung up on how other people's actions make us feel. Stop trying to control how people think and feel about you. If life seems out of control, it's probably because it is out of your control. Instead, focus on what you do control. You, your thoughts, and your actions. They're starting to say it's okay not to be okay, as if giving permission or making room for challenges. No, I'm always okay. It's okay to recognize moments where you need to pay extra attention to how you're doing and how you're responding to the world. But to qualify how I'm feeling as not okay is to tell me that how I feel is off or wrong, when really, it's just information. It's perfectly normal and okay to feel the full breadth of human emotion. And take this from a black male-presenting person who is still being told that my anger and disappointment is something I should hide for fear of scaring other people or making them feel less than. I need a new definition of okay. Usually when people say I'm not okay, they're referring to their outlook or perspective on life, or physical pain or ailments, or even the mental drama they're grappling with. All of this is a reality of life and being alive. So tell me, how am I not okay? I thought this way for years, and I still think this way. But it's something I've been working on in myself for the past year. It's easy to focus on negativity and disappointment and how it makes you feel about yourself. Mindfulness says, my mind is only one component of my existence. My feelings are only one component of my existence. Thoughts are based off of impressions and ideas that I take in, and my feelings are hormones, chemicals in my body that can be influenced by anything. Neither one of them are me. Neither one of them are who I am. Right now, I'm feeling constantly invalidated. I'm feeling used, overlooked, hated, and manipulated. More than anything, I'm feeling isolated and unwanted. But that's just how I'm feeling right now. But that's not who I am. My feelings are based on the cyclical thoughts going on in my mind, but that is not who I am, and that's not my reality. But I am powerful and capable of turning my thoughts into reality, whether or not I'm mindful of it. Every episode of this podcast starts as a thought in my head that generates a feeling that stirs me to action. I write those thoughts down, I obsess over them. I then speak my thoughts, turning them into reality, manifesting something that only existed in my mind until I chose to let that thought dictate my feelings and actions. This is always true and is true for everyone. We manifest what we choose to focus on. I may be going through things, I may be dealing and struggling with things right now. I may not feel as powerful and uplifted as I have in the past, but I'm always okay. I've learned a lot about myself since starting this podcast, in so many different ways. The act of recording your encounters with others, then playing them back, is very humbling. It's how I see that I still need to work on allowing room for other people to speak. I need to let go of the times my words were glossed over or ignored because of how clumsily they stumbled out of my mouth. Those events are in the past, so it's past time to check these misplaced feelings. But how? Ironically, I took a lesson from the past and shared it with my friend Tracy. Here's more of what we talked about last week. That's why I'm like, I need to have another podcast. Because I'll be dropping like knowledge, but that knowledge be kind of heavy for some people.
I think you can pepper it in.
I'll pepper a little bit of that in. All human experience comes from within. Anything that happens to us is just stimuli. It's just information. Our reaction, that's the human experience. So I'm trying to change how I'm reacting to situations, but based on how I interpret situations. But I'm trying to interpret situations from mindfulness, from an idea of clarity. I liked Gladiator back in the day, and so that's how I got into Marcus Aurelius. And then also Seneca wrote some very gruesome and graphic plays, but he was a mindful playwright / philosopher, and he wrote plays and painted art like, this one painting of Seneca, it's this old man eating a baby, and he's biting into the chest, and you're seeing him rip the flesh of the baby off. Stand into an art gallery in front of that painting and worry about your light bill. You're gonna be like, what the fuck is going on with this painting? You're not in your head anymore. You're not being mindless to the world around you. You're mindful to right now. One thing I like to think about when it comes to like Seneca and the Roman Empire, if you realize that the average life expectancy during the heyday of the Roman Empire was 25 years old, it was because with everything that's going on, you can drink water and die. There were so many ways to die. So many ways to die. And despite all that, no one was living past 25. Despite all that, they had time to enjoy life. So amongst all these comforts, you ain't gonna tell me that I can't find a way to enjoy life. Amongst all of these comforts, I can't find a way to enjoy my life? That says something about me. And so taking that idea, Marcus Aurelius, the way that he defined Stoic philosophy was objective judgment now at this very moment. Unselfish action now at this very moment. Willing acceptance now at this very moment. Of all external events, that is all you need. So mindfulness is about being in the moment, understanding that this current moment has nothing to do with you and how you feel. Everyone has their own psychological drama. Everyone has their own history. What's happening in this moment has nothing to do with you and how you feel. Remove your feelings from the situation. Recognize your feelings as your feelings, but remove them from the situation. Unselfish action now at this very moment. Willing acceptance. In yoga, they call it volunteering. Now, a lot of people we've appropriated yoga and we think it's just the movement. But yoga is an entire religion and philosophy that involves mind, body, and soul because it understands that our mind is only one aspect of our existence. Our body is only one aspect of our existence. Our soul, or how we're feeling, is only one aspect of our existence. And we can't define ourselves based on any one aspect. We have to take it all into consideration and remember that these are all immaterial. These are all brought upon by impressions. My body is just the food that I've eaten. My thoughts are just the ideas that I've taken in. Neither which of them are me. My feelings are chemicals going through my body that could be affected by anything. So who am I? We don't know. And that's why we're so easily shaken and offended when somebody challenges an idea. But I'm not my ideas, because ideas change every day.
Yeah, that's the storm.
It's really scary to come out and admit these different things that I'm going through and have been going through. It's really scary to have to face them down and look for help. but it's far less scary than having to live the rest of my life going through this, pretending it doesn't exist. I hope you enjoyed the first episode of Real Talk with Mark West. To talk back about the episode or to share where you are on your journey, reach out to me across my social media. I want to know how you're doing. How are you getting on? You can find those links at www.heymarkwest.com. Thank you all for tuning in. You're the kind of self-reflective people the world needs more of. Until next week, I happened upon a powerful quote from the late singer-songwriter Jim Morrison that ties perfectly into what we talked about today. I want to leave that with you as some food for thought. People are afraid of themselves, of their own reality, their feelings most of all. People talk about how great love is, but that's bullshit. Love hurts. Feelings are disturbing. People are taught that pain is evil and dangerous. How can they deal with love if they're afraid to feel? Pain is meant to wake us up. People try to hide their pain, but they're wrong. Pain is something to carry, like a radio. You feel your strength in the experience of pain. It's all in how you carry it. That's what matters. Pain is a feeling. Your feelings are a part of you, your own reality. If you feel ashamed of them and hide them, you're letting society destroy your reality. You should stand up for your right to feel your pain. I hope you found today useful. We all need help from time to time. We shouldn't run from emotional pain. We have to learn to deal with it. It helps to keep it real. I'll see you next week.